Hi there, this is GroovyNG and welcome back to my channel. We're back in Renoise today and I'm actually going to do a video on sampling. I'm going to start with some of the ways that I use the internet and YouTube and Tracklib to kind of collect samples and put them in a playlist, and then I'm going to go and try and make a track and chop stuff up. I think I'm going to use drum breaks for my drums and percussion loops and just build everything just from samples. I'm going to start by just showing you Tracklib because I'm sure a lot of you will have heard of this program, and if you haven't, it's pretty awesome. What it is basically loads of old songs and records are all uploaded here. You can use credits. You have to pay a subscription, which is a bit annoying, but it's just that's how all these websites work now. Basically, use credits to download songs and then you can just use them. So you can get lots of random kind of vintage songs in very good quality, which is the first thing that's very handy. And secondly, if you ever want to release these songs, it has a really good way you can kind of credit the artist. One really cool thing that Tracklib has is this loop feature. I've gone into inspiration and then I've scrolled down a bit, and inspiration is such a good place to look for stuff. You've got all these theme collections, and then if you come right down here, it has these loops here. These are just cool ideas that they've done, but you have this very cool loop feature where Tracklib kind of puts a grid along the song and you can just go through. This is such a random song, but I found this cool loop and you can add just the loop specifically to your collection. Now what's cool is I can actually search for other loops in this song, and I can add them as well. And then if I actually want to go and download these, I can go to my collection. If I hit download loop, it's gonna use one credit to download that song, but then I can download the other loop and it's not going to use a credit. So you can kind of collect as many loops as you want from one track, and you can do it all inside of Tracklib and get all of these cool loops done before ever taking them into Renoise or wherever you're going to take them. You can kind of get all this good material. I went on a massive hunt preparing for this tutorial yesterday for maybe an hour and a half, and then I did kind of some sample organizing. I used this sample manager called Audio Finder. Loads of cool songs. And I've gone and kind of found some good loops, some good effects, some bass samples, lots of different stuff that hopefully I can combine all together. And I've got a chord here. My idea is I'm going to bring this all together and try and make a song later in this tutorial, but a very healthy musical habit, and people often talk about this, is to separate the sampling stage from the music production stage and the sound design stage from the music production stage. So when you're actually making music, that's all you've got to worry about. I've got, a huge playlist of ingredients here to make a song from. Whilst Tracklib is amazing, you do have to pay a subscription, and there's so much free stuff on the internet, and YouTube is an absolute goldmine for it. I think it'd be stupid for me not to show you a couple of really cool channels that I use a lot to find inspiration for songs. One is this Son Image, or whatever it is. I've butchered that, but this has got loads of cool rare groove and alternative music and just weird little things. But this instantly, I've just loaded it up and it's got a very cool little percussion loop at the start. If you're taking stuff from YouTube, this Media Human YouTube to MP3 is by far the best YouTube ripper I've found for a number of reasons. One, it's just very simple. You copy the webpage and post it in, but you can also, if I go back, you can actually copy playlists. So if I go to a playlist and I go this one, If you actually click on the name of the playlist, so you can see the playlist is now selected, I can paste this whole playlist in, which is really, really handy. But I've got a few more I want to show you. This Andre Navajo is just an absolute goldmine as well. I'm not going to go through all these, listening to the tracks and their songs. I just want to show you that they're good places to go. Soulhawk is really, really cool. There's stuff coming on here all the time that I'm super into. And if you like more kind of funk and soul, then this is a great place for you. And then finally, this Armando drum breaks. This guy takes drum breaks and kind of loops them up already, so you can just click on any of them and they're already just the this is another really great source for your drum breaks. And then you've got kind of 3 Son Image, Andre Navajo II, and Soulhawk are just wicked for samples. So if you don't want to go into Tracklib, these places are also amazingly good. And this YouTube to MP3 is also free. For free, you can actually get all of these samples to use with Renoise. So those are good places to go digging. Let's get into Renoise and see what we can come up with. Okay, so I've got this sample and it's kind of this epic, padsy, spacey, and I think we can get something really cool out of it. So I'm just going to normalize it first. And I'm going to get rid of the start. One thing I don't love about Renoise is you actually have no live chopping method. So every time you want to chop stuff, you've either got to get this little slice tool, or you can just use the hotkey to put a slice marker in. And you just basically click through and kind of trigger. And put your slice markers in. Okay, so I'm starting to like hear some things that might be cool to chop. And here I'm just kind of slicing all of the new, when I hear a new sound, like a new chord or a new note, that's where I'm putting a slice marker. Cool, so I'm hearing some things in here, definitely. Okay, so I've actually gone and put loads of slice markers in. And this is technically, if you've got a nice long keyboard with kind of 64 keys or something, or even 49, it's very cool because you could kind of just chop the whole way up the keyboard. And this is quite like a Kanye West style. He does that on his ASR 10 or whatever that old sampler is, and he'll just chop loads of stuff all the way up the keyboard. And then you can actually pull like a chop from way later in the song and mix it with one from the start, and you kind of got the access to the whole song, and you can just really rearrange the whole thing. With this track, I think it's already quite lo-fi. It would be very cool with the drum and bass song. One thing I'm going to do quickly is just see what BPM it is originally. I have this tap BPM as part as audio finder, which I use, and then if I just play the first chop, so it's super slow. I'm going to have to speed this up by maybe 3 or more. Cool, perfect. So now I've tapped BPM and I've sped up the track. So I've come to 86, and then if I double 86, that is basically 170 or close enough to 170 that I know the chops are going to slightly or be close enough to aligning with a drum and bass beat. I've kind of done the sample stuff there. There's a couple more things I'm going to do. I'm going to put on mono mode so the samples chop each other off, and they'll also chop themselves off when you play the same note twice. The last one is kind of some songs you want to do it with, some you don't. I'm actually going to try with one shot. And what I've got to do, if I want a one shot, I've got to select this whole, I'm alt clicking in here so this is focused, and I'm selecting it all and I'm pressing one shot. And now when I play keys, you can see at the bottom here, I'm just hitting the note and it's kind of holding. For the length of the chop, which I really like. You almost have more control with one shot off, but I find it a lot easier to find rhythms with certain types of samples with it on, so that's for you to play with. One last control I always mention is a little bit sneaky here. It's this little arrow with the 1, and if this is on, it'll mean that the samples chop each other off when it gets to the next sample. So if you look where I am now, when it hits this next slice, it chops off, but I have this off, it's going to play through. And you can also mess around with that. It can get quite chaotic having it off, but you can get some really cool happy accidents where you slightly mistime something and the sample's been playing through, and it's definitely another way of chopping. So all these kind of subtle variations can really change how a sample is going to come out. I like what's happening here. I think I need to start just building some drums. And we're going to go and just create a few tracks here. Let's just get some colours going. Drums can be in red. Nice. And let's go and do a drum break. That could be, because it's quite punchy and snappy, this could be quite a good bass kick snare layer. So sometimes when you make drum and bass tracks, you'll have all like drum breaks and everything over the top, but then a lot of people have like a synthesized kick and snare or a 909 or 808 kick and snare kind of sitting underneath all the breaks, keeping everything tight. Because if you're using lots of old school breaks, sometimes the kicks are a bit weird or they've got weird energy, and it's quite nice to kind of low cut a lot of the breaks and then to have like a really solid synth or drum machine 909 kick and snare in there to form the kind of foundation of your drums. And when I hear this, it sounds very solid and punchy, and that's kind of what you're looking for in a foundation drum. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this kick and snare, and I'm using Command K to set markers. I'm just clicking in and pressing Command K to select some markers here, and I actually just need kind of the few. Cool, so it's going, and I've got a kind of muted kick there. This kick has got a hat over the top of it. I might want to get rid of that and put my own hat in there. So what I can do is I can come to modulation and I can create a new modulation lane. You see here, these are all saying mod 1. I've now put the kick, which is here. I'm triggering the kick. I've now put this onto modulation lane 2, and then I can very simply just select a low pass filter, and I can go to cutoff. I've got to take the resonance off because I don't want any resonance, and I can pull that hat out of the kick. And maybe because I've lost a bit of volume, by pulling some of the high energy out, it seems to be a bit quieter. I can maybe add a bit of drive. That's going to add a bit of crunch. This snare's also got a hat, by the sounds of it, in it. So if I wanted to, I could send the snare to its own modulation lane. So this one, the kick is still going to mod 3. So if I write kick here, and then I'm going to write snare here, and I can do kind of my own cutoff. I'm just taking off just the top of that, the kind of real sizzling of the hat, but I'm keeping most of the body and the tone of the drums. And we've got to put our BPM to 170. Okay, so very simple start. Cool. That's the foundation of the drums, and I don't really need to do too much more with it there. And I'm going to build on top of this. So one thing I'm going to do right from the start is I'm going to alt drag this new track into drums, and I'm actually going to make this called drums, and I'm going to make this kick and snare. I might make this kick, and then I might go a new one and call it snare, and then actually just separate these two out. I go here, select across, page down, copy and paste. So now I've got kick on its own channel, and something's happening with this kick. It's actually this little bit of noise stuff. It seems like there's been some error in the audio. So what I might try and do is actually just cut this back and see what happens. Or let's try another kick. That's a bit cleaner. So this one wants to go now to the kick. This is a bit of a cleaner sounding kick, which is what I kind of want. So let's go and put this in. There's a quick hotkey. I have done a video on hotkeys, but I use this one, Shift Command, page up and down, and it's going to jump to the next note in this column that I'm in, and that's an amazing hotkey that I use all the time. It's probably the most sneaky hotkey in Renoise that's the most useful. That one and Shift Enter are my favorite too. So if I'm selected on this sample track, if I click on this note and press Shift Enter, if you look up in this top right corner, it's going to then select the actual note that this is referring to, select the instrument that this note is referring to, and that's a really, really handy shortcut. But I'm not going to do any more on shortcuts today. I just wanted to show you that. I'm actually going to come and control with an ADSR. I'm going to control the length of the envelope, and I'm going to take this off. I'm just going to leave a little bit of release. Not that it makes any difference here. So I've got the kick a bit more snappy, and then I think the kick wants to come up in level a bit. So I'm just doing a little bit of work as I'm going. I've got the foundation kick and snare now, which I've taken from this first drum break. I'm going to come back in, and we're going to go and look for another drum break now. So this could be very cool, and we're going to go... I am going to have to warp it to the BPM of my song. Now, because we just took hits from this drum break, it didn't really matter about the speed of it. But this one, I think I'm going to chop it a little bit differently, and so I'm going to use this beat sync. I have this this tool. If I right click, I can go slices and chop sample, and it just slices the break into individual slices, kind of evenly spread across a grid. So if I just chop it, it's going to give me quite a nice starting place, and then I can just move around from here. You see, it hasn't done as good a job as you need it to, because there's swing in this break, but it has just kind of got me kind of on the right path. Now, I went through on my drum breaks video, which I'll link here, but you basically have a few options when you want to chop breaks in Renoise. One option is to do this individual slices and to have everything really fine and to get really detailed with the programming. And the other one is to kind of take this thing off. Having one shot and having mono mode on is actually really handy for these breaks. What's cool is the slices chop each other off. You can kind of play this sample from anywhere, any one of these slices. And I can kind of program it this way. So let's try and do it. We've got a real simple beat to start with. I know this is a kick, so I can line up the kick. Now what I'm getting is a bit of phasing here, and I don't know if that's from me, from this sample. Maybe if I go there, so that sounds way better. Okay, and it's going. Sounding a bit tight there, and I quite like the little flicky roll thing that's happening with the hats. And it's got quite a lot of stuff happening. I'm hearing when I'm hitting this first kick, it's going through, it's playing all of these drum hits, and maybe I don't want that. Maybe a roll, but they are pitching down, so I'm playing this B note here. There's a lot of ways to do this pitching stuff. But if you want a cool way that's very quick, you can just select this instrument, go on a new track and just paste it in. And so now I've got this as an instrument, and then when I play it down the keyboard, it's going to pitch it down. What I'm hearing at the end is the turnaround. It's just slightly off-timed here for some reason. And maybe do a volume fade here. So I'm going to go press 3, go to the bottom, press 8, and then I can use this Alt-Z command again to select anything below a line, and then select below that line, and then press Command-I to interpolate. And then you've got Command-L and Command-I, and they're going to interpolate differently. One's like a linear curve, and I think one has a more exponential or whatever it is. We know that word from COVID. So I like this start though, with this little, this off. Maybe I want another. And maybe I put a maybe, so Y80. The Y command is probability, and 80 is 50% through the hexadecimal, 256 hexadecimal numbers. And I have made a little cheat sheet showing how hexadecimal aligns with probability and percentage. But all you really need to know is like Y80 is this is going to trigger 50% of the time. And I've just done this on this first little hit. And maybe I'll do on the last one as well. Cool, so we've got a nice little rolling break here. I'm actually going to keep layering before I go and do anything else. So let's go and put another drum break in here. This has got some cool hats, so I'm definitely going to take this because that can have some cool hats. This is cool because it's quite kind of low and dusty, and I think I can layer that. And that's quite slamming, which is not really going to work. I've got that percussion loop I took before, which I might be able to layer, and that's cool. So we've got some hats going on. Let's go down half a page and let's go like that. So because they're two different hat sounds, it's sounding pretty cool already because I've just taken two different sounds from this drum break. This drum break I've added now, it's giving loads of like room sound and fatness to this break. I haven't really done anything here, and I've just slammed these three breaks together. I've got a bit of compression just on the drum bus, which is just like a simple one fader. It's like a waves compressor, but I love it because you just pull one fader in and you've got compression. Cool, let's go and let's put some percussion in. And this trick I do a lot with my doofers is I go LFO subtle frequency, and it's basically, I have shown how to set this up in another tutorial, but it's basically an LFO slowly modulating the cutoff of a filter, and it's really good for putting on hats and things like that because you don't have to do volume changes or anything. You can just put this on and it's kind of slowly modulating the hat. I kind of want to just have it like dun 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 dun. So it's kind of rolling nicely now. You've got two options here. So I've kind of got a nice foundation of drums that I like, and I kind of want to think about how do I take this drum from this one bar loop and create some variations of it. There's obviously the way where you can duplicate this track. I can come into this next layer and I can start messing around with things. Sometimes it's a bit intimidating to start this. You're like, oh my God, I've got all these tracks now that I'm going to have to change stuff with. Just start moving things around and then it'll make sense. You get this kind of fear of doing it, but as soon as you get into it, it becomes a lot easier. And secondly, you can kind of work in layers again. So if I mute all of these channels and I can leave the hats and the crash and maybe this percussion stuff, but the breaks is kind of the foundation of this. Cool. Okay, so we've got this new kick snare pattern, and now I'm going to start copying this pattern onto these breaks. Let's do this drum break one first. There's one more here. Let's copy these ones across. Y80. Aha, and then I need some rolling stuff at the end, maybe. Maybe let's do that. And I copy those Y80s in, but I might just keep them. Okay, so I've made some changes now, and to kind of the kicks and the drum breaks, and I've put a little hi-hat, little extra few hi-hats in here, just to give me some variation from this first pattern, but nothing too crazy. So if I play them together, so we've got this kind of nice cohesive mix of two patterns. So that's the first method for expanding this initial drum idea, is to kind of duplicate it, strip it back to the kick and snare, and then add layers from there. The second idea is to actually render out this whole section and then to play with it as one whole drum break. Now this is a little less intimidating than having to process, go through all the layers bit by bit and pick apart stuff and micromanage things around. This is a more macro way of dealing with things, where you just take the whole drum break, sample it out, and then reprogram it. So that's what we're going to do now. So I'm just selecting this whole break area, and then I'm going to go right click and render to sample. And it's going to create a new sample here with my same selection. And if I go into sample, now what's cool about this, I can just add another track here. What's actually happened is, because I haven't rendered out the drum bus effects, none of the drum bus effects have been applied when I've rendered this out, and so I can still keep it in this group and still mess around with the drum bus processing later on. I'm actually tempted to go and use the slice tool again, because I know it's pretty much bang on the grid. If I go slices and chop it into 16 slices, okay, so it does need a little bit of adjusting in just a few spots just to get the transients in the right places. Right, so I've sliced this whole drum break up again, and I'm going to turn mono mode back on. I'm going to turn the play to the end of sample on. Yeah, so what's cool about this method is it's just very simple. You start to think about your drum break in a different way, as just like as one entity, and then you can just chop it and do crazy things and rolls and re-triggers and reverses. And it allows you to really take advantage of Renoise by just having this like one rendered break. So I think it's a very, very cool and efficient way to get more patterns out of an original idea. So I think I'm going to leave the drums there, and we're going to go and start chopping up this sample.
Don't think you are. Know you are.
Okay, so we've got kind of like an A section and a B section now for our track. And we're going to go to the sample layer, and I've got obviously already gone and chopped this all the way up. That's a cool pattern, so I'm going to try and put that in now. Indoors, it's a lot easier to kind of do these recorded parts, but in Renoise, it's always a bit of a nightmare, because I always find myself not being able to just play the MIDI until I get it right. I have to delete it and create more sections. And so one thing you can do is just duplicate out whatever you're doing, and so you've got a longer amount of kind of to work with. And then hopefully in this, I will actually find that pattern again. It's sounding kind of nice to me, just stripped back a little bit at the moment when I'm playing it. I think some of this is I need to bring some of the breaks down a bit when I go to mix it. And then the other pattern. Maybe we go from this pattern to this one, might work better. Yeah, okay, so we're going to swap this. This is going to be our, and I can go above it, and I can go intro, and let's go and just have this all break down here. Cool, this is going to go. I want to put a little stop again here to accentuate that little note, because I just think it's very cool if I go. And then let's do something here. Let's do like a part B pattern, and we're going to go F3 so we can see what's happening. Okay, let's go up the keyboard more. I think I had one note I might want to change here, but I quite like the idea of this. Maybe we'll take out one of these drum breaks again. So there's a couple of things I want. I think I want a vocal sample to some degree, and I think I want a ride, you know, just to give this section here, just to give it some more drive. Okay, let's get this in. Okay, I've given it a little bit of a mix now. And I haven't got too crazy with it because I just want to get through this tutorial, but I've just done some balancing, mainly balancing, a bit of compression. I haven't even really done very much EQ on these tracks, just filtering, balancing and compression, and then a little bit of limiting on the master bus, and that is absolutely it. So I've really not done very much, and I still think it sounds quite good and quite tight. So yeah, I hope you like the track and the tutorial. Catch me soon for more Renoise content. Peace. Track playthrough.